Howdy y'all, it's Mike and welcome to another vlog. Glad to see you back again. Hope you enjoyed my last video about whether or not graduate school is worth it for you. And hopefully you're coming here because you made the choice that it is. And if that's the case, well, I'm here with tips about your application, how to further a little bit, and maybe make a stronger case to universities just to let you in. Now, this isn't gonna be some like clickbaity, like 12 tips proven to get your application accepted. No, I think I have some practical advice. I thought a bit about it myself, asked some people I knew in my graduate program, asked Reddit, and I think I have a couple tips for you. First being about your GRE. Now, the GRE is an important exam, don't get me wrong. However, it's not your entire application. Schools do look at it, do use it to assess you, but it's not your only metric. And sometimes videos on the internet, of which there are a lot, make it seem like it is the primary thing you need to worry about in graduate school. And I'm here to tell you, it's important, but some schools don't even require it. Just goes to show you it's not everything in an application. I'm not telling you to walk in and fail it, but maybe focus on some of the other things in your application and make them a little bit stronger. Because maybe you didn't have a strong GRE score, but you can wow people with your statement of purpose, or you had a lot of extracurriculars and you think you can play those up in a resume or a CV or maybe even an interview. Do an analysis of where your strengths lie, where your weaknesses lie, and focus on the things that will make you a strong applicant. And in some cases, that might not be the GRE. You might have done fantastic on it, but even if that's the case, there are other materials in your application portfolio that you should also worry about. Now, option 2, it's a little bit of an asterisk here, but it's not visiting or reaching out to the school that you want to go to. I understand if you're an international student, it can be a little hard. It could be a literal trip across the world, or even if you live in the same country as the school you'd like to go to, it could be on the other side. It could be a trip. And I realize that not everyone has the resources to do that. And if that's the case, that's fine. But one beautiful thing about the internet is that it enables regionless communication. So you can Skype in, you can communicate through email, things like that. It has a couple benefits, at least that I know. It gets your face known to people at the university, so when they're going through applications, they have a memory with you. It also allows you to get a vibe for the school and the program. I know that sounds a little nebulous and imprecise. You'll understand when you do it. Schools might be looking for a particular kind of thing in their application, and learning about that through a visit might be the only way you could learn about that. I did this. I got in contact with an alumni of my undergraduate who also went to the program I wanted to go to, and he and I talked. He gave me an idea of what the school was like, how it compared to where we both went to our undergrads, and that was immensely helpful. But probably most helpful of all was he connected me with the person who would eventually become my advisor. And emails, a couple phone calls later, I think I had a general idea of what my program was looking for and how I could suit my application to fit those parameters. Now, I live in Michigan now, but I'm from Wisconsin, so I had the benefit of just whoop around the lake, and I just came over to visit Michigan, which was also helpful. I got to meet people in person, they let me tour my building, I met a bunch of professors, and that was very beneficial in deciding that this is the place I wanted to be. And it also gave me some sort of secondary motivation in making my application really good. So that's another tangential benefit. And the third thing I have is kind of cliche, but let me explain. It's procrastination. And I don't mean your standard kind of procrastination where you're watching a Smarter Everyday video and then you kind of tune in and it's 3 a.m. and you're sitting there watching a video on why the color purple is statistically better than the color blue, and you're wondering what you're doing with your life. Not that kind of procrastination. More so working procrastination. I know I'm guilty of this. I know a lot of people who are guilty of this, where, it's final season, it's the end of the semester, application is due like a week after finals, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, okay, I'll have time after I'm done with finals to want to do that application. I'll just get through my exams, powerhouse through that application, and I'll be fine. But I'm here to tell you, after finals, you're not going to want to do an application at all. You're not going to want to move, let alone work. Getting ahead and doing a lot of your applications beforehand could really be beneficial, especially in some cases. If you're applying to a lot of schools, I personally applied to a few, but I know people who applied to 5, there's someone who applied to 10. Having the maximum amount of time to work on those applications, flesh them out, and revisit them. Because let's face it, we've all typed something up at 2 a.m. and then come back the next morning or a week later to realize, like, oh, that's not my best writing. Not my best writing in the slightest. And you don't want to give that kind of writing to the people that are ostensibly deciding your future. So it kind of behooves you to get an early start on those. Maybe identify your schools at the start of the semester, start looking at the applications, maybe make a schedule to build through them, front load some of that stuff so when you get to finals, it's just done, they're submitted, that kind of thing. Also, it helps if you're applying to applications throughout the semester. Application fees are a thing, so you can spread that financial burden across the entire semester instead of concentrating it into one week at the end. Now, my last point kind of goes along with procrastination because, you need time to do this well, but it's proofreading. And I put this on here because it came up a surprising amount. In particular, there was a story that someone told me that I think you would find beneficial. I'm gonna anonymize it just for the person's privacy because it's kind of embarrassing. But I knew someone, they were the kind of person who applied to a bunch of different schools, and they never heard back from one of their schools. And it was curious, so they reached out to the admissions person, and they realized that they had submitted an essay telling that school about how much they wanted to attend a different school. And now, that's kind of an extreme example, but I think it illustrates my point of making sure what you're submitting to the school is what you would like. Not only because you want to avoid big errors like telling another school how much you want to attend a different school, but some things like little tiny errors in and of themselves, if there's one, it's not so much, but if there are a bunch of errors across all of your documents, that can look unprofessional and reflect negatively on you in the selection process. Proofreading might also help you make a stronger argument. Like I said before, our first iteration isn't always our best work, and there's a reason why the draft process exists. Better safe than sorry to go over it a couple times than not. I'm guilty of this because on one of my applications, I definitely rushed it at the last moment. It's not something I'm super proud of. Now, I hope you enjoyed these tips. I'd love to hear any feedback you might have about it. I'm not an expert on the graduate admissions process, but all I know is that I am in grad school, so I did something right. And maybe some of these lessons, which are not just for me, but graduate students I know or some folks on Reddit, might help you strengthen your case in your applications. Now, I hope this helps, but until next time, I'll see you later.